Hello again from my front porch. Today we're going to talk about a very handsy topic. That's right, handsy, hands. Well, at least a hand. Here, let me explain. There was an actor who is no longer with us. He passed away some years ago, but his name was Ted Cassidy. Now, some of you will recognize that name, but some of you probably won't. However, if I tell you the name of the character he's most famous for playing, you'll get it right away. He played Lurch on the Addams Family TV show, the old black and white one from the 1950s. And what brought him to mind is I was watching the new Wednesday, the second season, or the first half of the second season that was out on Netflix, right? Yeah. Which, by the way, just as an aside, I really enjoy the show. I think they've done an excellent job with it. Now, in the case of that show, they are drawing the characters, pulling on the characters from the original comics, where the Addams Family was first introduced, the cartoons of them, the hand-drawn ones. That's why Gomez in the TV show is a shorter, sort of rounder fellow, whereas John Astin played him on the TV show, the TV series that Ted Cassidy was on. He was thinner and more svelte and very suave, and all those guys. But that's not the way Gomez necessarily was originally as the character was created. So Wednesday draws back on the original creations, not on the old TV show. However, even though that's the case, it does seem to me like the actor playing Lurch on Wednesday, he has watched some Ted Cassidy clips. He's drawing on that a bit, and that's cool because he did an excellent job playing Lurch, and we all remember him from doing that. But Ted Cassidy had quite a diverse acting career. Other roles, he was in Star Trek. Well, some casual Star Trek fans will say, oh yeah, I remember he's in one of the last episodes of the original series where he played this big android guy, the episode What Are Little Girls Made Of? And that is true, he did play that role. However, he played in 2 other episodes of that show, both of which are pretty well known. One of the very early episodes, there was an alien named Blaylock, anyway, something like that. And there was this, the actual alien was played by a very young Clint Howard, the younger brother of Ron Howard. And that's who he actually was. But when he was talking at first with the Enterprise crew, he had this fake bust of a scarier looking alien with a deep resounding voice that was talking to him. Ted Cassidy was the voice of that false perception of who Blaylock was. But that's not the only one. A lot of people look at the episode and they kind of give it a little pass, a little chagrin. I think it's actually a pretty good episode for various reasons, but I can find something good about most episodes of the original Star Trek, even the Spock's Brain episode. I can find enjoyment out of that one too, and something a lot of people dismiss and pass away. But I digress. The other episode is The Arena, because Ted Cassidy does the vocal inflections, the growls and the sounds made by the Gorn that Captain Kirk has to do battle with, mano a mano, on the planet. And so Ted Cassidy has quite the Star Trek credentials that come to play there. But that's not the only show he was present in that I really enjoyed growing up. He was also in The $6 Million Man. Now, he was not in a role that he originated. He filled in a role that Andre the Giant actually originated, and that was playing the role of the bionic Bigfoot, because on the $6 Million Man TV show, Bigfoot is an entity that Steve Austin encounters. He's very strong because he's actually a robot. He's actually the front man, or the protector, if you will. Not the front man, that's a whole different type of capacity, but he is the guardian, the protector of aliens who are underground in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. I know, you're saying that just sounds crazy. That sounds so. It was the $6 Million Man. Come on. Just enjoy it. It was good fun and good action, and don't ruin my childhood. But Andre the Giant originated the role of the Big Bionic Bigfoot. Unfortunately, they had Bigfoot come back. In fact, I think the episode was called The Return of Bigfoot. And Andre the Giant by that point had sadly passed away. So somebody else needed to portray Bionic Bigfoot, and Ted Cassidy got the nod to do that. So it's when Bigfoot comes back and again is facing off with Steve Austin, that's Ted Cassidy doing that. But that's not even the only science fiction area or fun show that I enjoyed growing up that Ted Cassidy was present in. There was also the Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby series, The Incredible Hulk, where Bill Bixby played David Banner, and when he would Hulk out, he would turn into a very green Lou Ferrigno. Well, it was Ted Cassidy who did that initial narration when you watch in, David Banner, a man, and all this kind of stuff, that whole thing. Ted Cassidy also did the grunts and growls and roars of the Hulk himself. That's not Lou Ferrigno. That's Ted Cassidy doing those kind of voiceover things. And Ted Cassidy did a lot of voiceover work for a lot of cartoons. Sometimes he did play Lurch in the cartoons, Scooby-Doo and other places where Lurch as the character would show up, and he would obviously do that. But he did voices for other things as well. However, one of the roles that he did that is pretty well known, but not always connected. See, we think of him as Lurch. We think of him as the android alien. We can maybe even think of him in these other things as Bigfoot or as the voice of the Incredible Hulk. The growls. But he was in that one. Yeah, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Ted Cassidy is the poor, unfortunate guy who, big, strong, tough cowboy guy, tries facing off with Paul Newman's character, and for his reward, he gets kicked in the sensitive male area. And it's practically a meme. I've seen the image used many times of Paul Newman's legs sticking straight out and just whoop, going right up in there. And with this big, large, giant Ted Cassidy as a cowboy. And it is kind of fun to see him with a full head of hair as opposed to when he played Lurch and it was all white and stuff. And but he's very dark hair, big mustache, stuff. So he looks very different in that role. But that's another role that he's known for. And the unfortunate thing is that he's known not for how he played the role of that character in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kids, but for the fact that he gets kicked like that by Paul Newman. And so I did see an interview with him, read an interview with him at one point where he was asked what his favorite role was. And of course, you would expect he would say Lurch or something like that. And he actually made it sound like that he had no favorite role to that point, that sort of in his mindset, his favorite role was the next one. He was always looking to do the next one and to throw himself fully into the next one, which I think is a really great attitude. I really do. I think it's a fantastic mindset, which takes us back to one other role that some of you will be totally aware of, some of you will not. File this away because it'll probably come up if you ever go playing team trivia somewhere. This will probably come up sometime as a question. In addition to playing Lurch on the original Addams Family TV series, Ted Cassidy also played Thing. The hand that walked all over the place. Yeah. See, now in the Wednesday show, Thing is all over the place, but he's CGI, and so it's the hand with a stub at the end, and you see him from all sides, walking around, jumping around, doing all kinds of stuff. In the old Addams Family TV show, they didn't have the CGI, and so it was an actual hand, usually with a black sleeve or a black glove, and Thing came out from different places. He came out of a box with a little lid on it that he did stuff, or he just would pop out of a cabinet, or he would be... They had all kinds of ways of making it possible for Thing to show up without you seeing all the rest of the arm that was there. That was Ted Cassidy's arm. Now, there were a few times where Thing and Lurch were in the shot together, and so some other random person's arm was used, probably one of the crew members, the stagehand, but that didn't happen very often. So the vast majority of the time, Thing was played by Ted Cassidy. So Ted Cassidy was the real Thing. But see, now I want to go back to this other comment, the observation thing that I observed from that interview that I'd seen with him, where that attitude of what is your favorite, what is your best, I think in Ted Cassidy's mind, or at least his interpretation from what I read in the context, what I'm inferring, I never talked to the guy about it, but what I'm inferring is that he never felt like he had achieved his best. He never felt like he had reached the pinnacle of that was my best performance. He liked a lot of the performance. In fact, I have seen comments from his son as well now, who says that he loved playing Lurch, especially because of how people embraced Lurch. And there were people who not only found him fun and amusing, but even little kids that, Lurch is this big, but he almost gave off a bit of an introverted, sort of withdrawn, shy kind of thing, and that there are little kids who would identify with that about him, and that they wouldn't be scared by him. They looked at him as a kindred spirit that they could relate to. That's really cool, and apparently he really did like that. He embraced that, but he never. When he was asked what is your favorite role, he didn't have a favorite role yet. He's looking for the next one to be the favorite, and the next one, and the next one. And I thought, man, that is such a really great attitude. And when you talk about him being the real thing, what an attitude that is. That is the real thing when it comes to attitudes. Always, let me take a step back. Be proud of what you've done. Be your biggest cheerleader. Absolutely. It's not arrogant, it's not prideful for you to say, I'm pleased with what I've accomplished. That's great. But never stop. Don't go, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Now I can just sit back and relax and just coast from here on out. No, don't do that. Yes, celebrate what you've achieved, but always strive for the next thing. What's your best experience? The next one. What's your best idea? The next one. What's your best situation? The next one. What's your best time of life? The next one. That's the real thing right there. Honestly, that point was not made in the article, but you know how my brain works. I see stuff like this and I go, ooh, I'll pull this piece out of there. Yeah, I could do that, and this will make a snappy front porch episode. Now, see, you gotta ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, just in case that was too subtle. But anyway, I was really charged up by that, as you probably can tell, and so I wanted to pass this on. This concept of the real thing being Ted Cassidy's mindset of the best thing is the next thing. So kudos to you, Ted Cassidy. From all indications that I've seen, you were a really great guy. People loved being around you. You were a gentle giant as an individual, as an actor. You didn't shy away from playing. Even no matter how goofy or silly the characterization was that you were cast into, you played it full and gave it your all. And that's why we remember those roles, because you didn't just treat it like a throwaway cartoon. You treated that person you were playing, that thing you were playing, in some cases actual, as legitimate, as real. And that speaks volumes for who Ted Cassidy was, just as an actor and a professional. But this other concept about never being satisfied, always striving for the next big thing, look for the best as the next thing around the corner, that's the real thing right there. And with that little bit of wisdom, I will let y'all go, and I'll see you next time. From My Front Porch.